here with Associate Head Coach Troy Thibodeau, and we will take some questions.
Troy, I know you share a lot of responsibilities across the staff, but just want to get an insight into your role, your specifics. What are your primary areas of focus within the staff?
Yeah, so good question. My primary areas of focus are I work with the forwards. I'm in charge of the power play. So also on top of that, obviously recruiting is, as an assistant coach in college hockey is always part of the job. Nizey handles a lot of the bulk of that, travel and everything else, but Zach and I and even Anthony are on the road, a good amount as well. So we have a big hand in recruiting. But on the day-to-day, it's forwards and it's power play, and obviously have a big say in how we want to play 5-on-5, as does our whole staff. We're pretty we communicate obviously all the time about that, but yeah, run a lot of the 5-on-5 stuff as well.
With the power play, have had spurts of really good success on the power play, and but lately have changed some things up. Have a few different line combinations on the power play. Walk me through what led to those decisions, and how you've been able to sort of piece it together with some injuries that you've had.
Yeah, that's the main thing right there. You said at the end, you just try to piece together a power play. I've been running power plays now for a while, and the number one in an ideal world, the number one thing you want is cohesiveness on the group, and you want 5 guys to stay together as long as possible to work through ups and downs, and that's the plan going into the year, and you build it around, like anything else, our 5-on-5 game. You build the power play around concepts, you build it around habits, and then you kind of let the guys use their skill. So we talk about that a lot. But yeah, as far as lately, injuries have played a little bit of a role in that. Duco going down, he had done a good job at the net front on one of those units, and obviously Casper emerging as a good power play guy has kind of worked the unit around him a little bit. Quinny doing a good job up top. So we found some continuity with that, with Waldron, and now with Sully, and tried Philly out this weekend. But yeah, honestly, it's something you don't want to change up too much, but also you have to give the guys something new, something fresh. So whether it's a new breakout, whether it's a new face-off play, and because it can get kind of monotonous with the same guys. So that's a big area of focus for us, is keeping it fresh, but also not losing sight of what our main concepts are from day one. And that's since it's dipped a little bit, I feel we've dipped a little bit from those concepts, and just trying to hammer that stuff as much as we can.
Sure. You mentioned the recruiting aspect. So you had big class, a lot of exciting signees, and so tell me about how that you put that together. Relatively short period of time. When you all got here as a staff, kind of late in the game for recruiting. So how were you able to really put sort of your fingerprint and your staff's fingerprint on it?
Yeah, it was interesting how we all came together. Obviously Zach had been here, so they were already had guys committed, and they were already talking to guys that maybe weren't committed yet that we followed up on, and then myself, obviously coming from Dartmouth, it's a different recruiting style and different type of player you're looking for, but the player pool pretty well, and then you add Anthony with his experience in the USHL, and then you add Nizey with his experience with the younger guys and the USHL. So we had a wide range of of players to kind of look over and talk about, and so that was a big part of it. And then I think the number one thing with recruiting is you have to be in line with what type of players you want to bring in, and the type of players that they are and people that they are. So I think you've heard Anthony talk about it a lot. We want to bring highly competitive and high character people in here. So we get thrown a lot of names at us all the time. Our emails are filled every day with guys that want to play hockey here, but we try to be very, very specific about who we bring in, and we want highly competitive kids that are high character. So you start with that, and then I think you just obviously you just go through the player pool, and having a good traction on the USHL was important. Our league is made up of a lot of USHL players, so getting back into that league, and but yeah, it's you try to piece together like anything else, but we really try to dig deep into every kid and every family and make sure they're the right people to bring in.
You and Isaac have the most collegiate coaching experience on the staff. You've got a head coach who has seen the recruiting aspect from the other side of things in the USHL. So how was that sort of different from your past experience in helping Anthony along with putting together the recruiting classes and getting used to collegiate recruiting?
Yeah, no doubt. As far as the player pool, Anthony had a pretty good grasp as anybody, just being a coach in the USHL, and that's kind of where we wanted to go and find a lot of our players. And same with Nyzie, he was just at the program for 1 year. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of different rules and things like that, and dead periods, and contacts and evaluations and things that go along with that for sure, and setting up official visits and unofficial visits. So, Size and I were definitely a big help for that with Dave and Anthony. So, but that's kind of just the dirty work and behind the scenes stuff. But for the most part, Nyzie and Anthony, they had a pretty good grasp on it as well. So we were almost playing catch up with them a little bit, because I was looking for different players when I was at Dartmouth. You're always looking for the best ones, but there's obviously different criteria there. And then I worked for a guy at Dartmouth too that had spent 5 years in pro hockey too, in between his stint at Quinnipiac. So it was kind of similar there of, hey, can we talk to this kid today? Is this a dead period? So there's those types of things that happen every once in a while that we got to help pick up the pieces. But no, all in all, Anthony's got a great grasp on the player pool. And I think the big thing about it too is everyone's got advisors these days, and that's a big part of this whole thing, right? So Anthony and Dave had a really good relationship with a lot of advisors too coming in, that obviously Size and I have our relationship. So when we piece all those together between the four of us, that helps a lot too, because that's a big part of the recruiting process these days.
Let's talk a little more about that. The recruiting process changed. It's changed the way that the college landscape has changed. And so you've been in it long enough that you've seen that change sort of developing. How are things different now than they were a couple of years ago, or even longer ago than that?
Yeah, I'd say, the CHL obviously opening up is a whole new world that not a lot of college assistant coaches had much experience in at all. Unless you coached in it and then went to college, which is rare. You don't really cross paths with those guys a lot. Your connections aren't really up there. Whenever you saw a kid recruiting that even played 2 games of major junior, they were off limits. So that's totally opened up a whole nother player pool in itself. But it's like anything else. It's gotten a little bit, the advisors play a big role in it, and there's times where it can be a little bit overwhelming, and NIL's gotten involved a little bit now, but we're lucky. I don't think we're quite on the path of the basketball and football yet, where it's I don't know how some of those assistants do it, with some of these guys and signing day and all that, and it's there, but at the end of the day, hockey's a different type of game. You can't just get the 3 best recruits and run all the way to the Frozen Four. And that's what I love about this game is you want to continue to, as more options become available, the transfer portal, the CHL, you want to continue to be really cognizant about who you're bringing in. And if those players come from North America, if they come from the CHL, if they come from overseas, whatever that combination is, you have to be in line and consistent with what you really want. And that's, for us, again, that's competitive. That's high character kids, leaders on their teams, and that won't change. But yeah, it's a little overwhelming at times with the advisors and the NIL and kids decommitting and all that type of stuff. But it's the way it's gone, and it's the way it's going. So you have to adapt a little bit too as a coach.
Sure. Back to the guys that are in the locker room right now. We've got a long breaker right now. How do you? First off, you mentioned a couple of injuries, Duco in particular, but how does this help you get ready for about a month from now when you've got Denver, and how does it create challenges with that big long break that you've got right now? Yeah,
it's the first time I've had this long of a break. Every time I've been in college, I think I've almost always had a Christmas tournament that you have to come back for. So sometimes you come back before Christmas, and sometimes you're back the day of or the day after. So it's a little different that way. The hardest part probably for us is the 2 weeks at home. I think that's a long time, and guys go out and skate and they work out, but it's not quite the same, So when they come back, there's definitely we have to get them going again. And at a time, actually, in this last weekend with North Dakota, we felt we were in pretty good shape in both those games. We felt like we didn't run out of gas for the first time in a little while. So that comes at a tough time, but it also is the positive part of it is we do have 2 weeks when we get back to get them back, into skating shape and game shape and feeling pressure against each other and bumping guys. So it comes at a decent time. Yeah, it gives Duco more time. It gives Dolls more time to come back from his injury and just all the bumps and bruises. We've had some guys playing a lot of minutes and some guys that have played all 18 games so far. So there's part of that as well. But yeah, it's definitely different. And but I also think it's important. These guys get here in August, and this is probably the only time they get to go home, especially for the European guys too, until probably March, right? So that time is important with family. I think that's good, especially for where we're at in the season with the results we've had lately. It's good to get away from it for a bit because you get stuck in this bubble. So it's a good timing, but so yeah, we'll be all right when we get back.
Here with Frankie Carogioiello, and we'll take some questions.
Frankie, you're in the midst of a long break, and that can be a good thing and a tough thing to deal with as far as the long break between the North Dakota series and looking ahead to Denver. So just tell me, how do you specifically, how do you maintain that? How do you maintain your physical shape, and how do you maintain your headspace leading into the Denver series about a month from now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure when we go home, we're still working out and getting on the ice. And I think a big thing that we're kind of lucky with is when we get back, we have a week off too of games before we get back into it, before we go to Denver. So that'll be a good way to stay in shape and get back into it.
How do you shake off the rust when you get back? You know, a little bit of time off. You mentioned working out while you're home, but how do you shake off the rust and get yourself game ready once you're back?
Yeah, basically just getting back in the routine of things. Trying to get back in game shape as quickly as possible because we do have the week off, but then we're right back into it. So I think the biggest thing is just getting right back to where we kind of left off. So that'd be the biggest thing.
Looking back at the last few games, you've obviously trying to get off the streak that you're on right now, but you've got found some scoring ability against North Dakota as a team and able to put a number of goals in the back of the net. So how are you able to turn that, and how can you kind of build on that momentum moving forward?
Yeah, I think we just still have a lot of belief in this room. Like, we believe in the guys that are in the room, and I think just once we get a couple goals, like, they kind of just start going. And I think we were just in that little slump, but once we started to get all the guys started to get more confidence in their own play, and that was probably the biggest key for creating more offense. You personally,
you've had to battle back from some injuries. You know, last year was a tough one, and really we're coming on strong early in that year, and then and you've shown that scoring touch again this year. How has that battle back been for you to battle your way back and get yourself ready to go again?
Yeah, obviously last year was really tough being out the whole year, but I was willing to do whatever I can to be back on the ice with these guys, and I'm very thankful that I was able to be healthy and do that again.
And we're thankful that you're back and healthy again and ready to go again. But back to this break right now. You mentioned yourself, but how do you keep other guys accountable? How do you keep each other accountable as far as staying in shape and maintaining your fitness throughout the break?
I feel like the guys just hold themselves to their own standard, and we trust each other that we're all going to stay in shape and be ready to go when we come back for Denver.